Hello, everyone. This is Jurgen Appelo with another Happy Melly coffee. And a couple of people joined us to discuss a very interesting question that was posed by Durgesh in India. So I would like to switch over to Durgesh immediately and ask him what was your amazing question. Durgesh, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jurgen. So my question was, it's been long. I'm working as an agile coach, and I got into this management through practices. I came to learn so many things. I've been practicing that at home as well. But in our work culture, what I feel like whenever we interact with our upper management, uh, they always come up with a question. They want to see some quantitative measurement of the human side of transformation, whatever we do. So in this, I can say that's what my question is actually. Is there a way we can measure them up? I've seen so many other tools, Happy Index and all those stuff, but how we can measure our management through practices that we implement. So that's what my question is.
Okay, I like that. So is there a way to measure in a quantifiable way the improvement in management practices? Yeah, we can see it in a broader sense, any kind of transformation or agility effort. But so that's a good question. Is that a good question, or can we even improve that question? That is something that's like a meta question that I'm asking the participants here. So we have Nicoletta from Budapest. We have Claire from the UK. Lenny from Denver, Colorado in the US. Sarah, you called in from Florida, I believe, correct? And Ankur is also from India, just like Durgesh. Does anyone want to start? Just raise your hand and unmute yourself if you have an opinion about this question.
So I guess the question would be, is measuring that valuable? What
right. Yeah. Is it something that we want to measure? That's a good question, Sarah. Does it make sense to measure this, or should we say not everything is measurable? just believe that this makes sense.
Managers don't like that answer usually, right?
Yeah.
They can't put it on a chart and have a graph and present it in a PowerPoint. It's not valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even if you don't think things are measurable, it still makes sense to present some kind of metric. Otherwise, you don't get their buy-in in the first place. So we might even have to fake some kind of measurement just to get them go along.
So Jurgen, I'd like to add to Sarah's comment there.
Go ahead.
And that's not only how do we measure, but how have we measured currently? So what are we comparing it to? I think we often forget that part of the equation is if there's no baseline of what we've measured before, then whatever we measure has no comparison to anything in the existing culture.
Yeah, that's a good one. So if you measure something, you have to have some kind of baseline, some history to compare it against. And often that is lacking. So it makes no sense to start measuring because you don't know if you're improving. Do I understand you correctly there, Lenny? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Some other people joined us, Vanessa and Joris. Vanessa, where are you calling from right now?
I'm in California.
In California. Wow, yeah. We have four people from the US this time. That's so awesome. Yeah. So what's your idea about this question?
Well, I mean, are we measuring the adoption of values? That feels a little out of context for me, or it doesn't make sense. I think of when looking at implementing kind of a culture to be more agile and implementing these kind of practices, if we think about it not as an organization, but think about how do we behave when we go to different countries where we're interacting with different cultures. Are we going in there and saying, well, I'm going to measure how much you're adopting my culture, and what's the worst thing I can do? I can run over to, I was living in Spain, and say, well, the American way is the best way, and let me show you how to do it and be this way. And you know, thinking about how can we lose friends really quickly, and then start to think, well, how can I make friends? And a lot of the times with getting people excited about different cultures, when we're looking at countries, people start with something simple and easy like food. Okay, let's have an International Food Day. So what if we thought about how can we have Management 3.0 snacks, you know, little bits that people can get excited about and have a positive experience. Once you have a positive experience with something that's new or foreign to you, then you're interested in going a little bit deeper.
Okay, thank you. Andy.
We're faced with at least two competing tensions here. One that was behind Durgesh's question is that we need management support to do some of these exercises. And management is looking at the world through a lens that says, if you can't measure it, it's not real. We have a different set of lenses that Vanessa articulated that, you know, some things you can't measure, or the act of measuring messes with it. It creates an unnecessary interruption into the system. You know, there's so many classic experiments of, you know, measuring productivity, right? That end up being totally meaningless. So perhaps the first question is, do we need to measure to be successful in our current organizations? And then if the answer is yes, how can we successfully measure something to satisfy management and their worldview? I don't think we're going to successfully change their worldview directly by saying it's not worth measuring.
Yeah, I like the fact that you use perspectives and lenses there, Andy. It made me think of my own effort a good many years ago when I introduced Agile and Scrum in the organization where I was CIO. I noticed that different people were struggling with different things. Like our CEO had a problem with customers calling in late in the evening when a website went down, and being totally frustrated with the lack of quality of some of the products and services that the teams had offered and deployed on the website. And it obviously frustrated him. That was a need for him from his perspective, not to have such phone calls from angry customers anymore. For developers, for the teams, it was completely different. They did not want the chaos of project managers intervening every day and the wind blowing in a different direction from hour to hour. It drove them nuts that there was never any vision. And what we did was we introduced Agile thinking and Scrum, and both stakeholders saw progress, but it was in entirely different ways. So I tell this because they are different things that you're measuring. I'm proud of the fact that turnover, for example, dropped to 0 for a couple of years after introducing Agile, because basically the dust settled down. There was no chaos anymore. Yes, sometimes things were difficult, but at least we had things under control as teams, and they were happier. But the CEO perhaps did not care so much about the happiness or the turnover or whatever. He cared about the quality of the website and not getting any phone calls from angry customers, which was not a primary concern of the developers. So here you see different lenses indeed. And I think as CIO, I had to measure both from the perspective of my multiple stakeholders. One, the CEO, who paid me my salary. And on the other hand, the teams whom I was responsible for. And I also had to know that I was doing a good job for them. And for me, well, turnover was a quite decent metric, but I could have measured other things as well. Anyone recognize these completely different perspectives that you have in your transformations, where management needs something completely different from teams? I see some people nodding their heads. Anyone wants to add something to
Well, I mean, I think, you know, people focus on measuring different things based on what they see as valuable. And within any kind of a culture, you know, there's different things to value and be valued and how you express that. So it makes complete sense what you were saying here, that it's, again, context is king, so to speak, about what we're measuring and who's looking at what. And I think, you know, your role as kind of a bridge builder in between the different values that were being looked at and different measurements that would be being more important. I think it's about, you know, shifting what you're talking about and focusing on, which we all do every day in our lives. You know, when I'm talking with my grandma, I'm explaining things in a different way and showing value on different things than when I'm with my friends. So it's something that we're all capable of doing. It's just remembering that what gets buy-in, so to speak, from the team versus the executive team you have to shift what you're focusing on as far as what measurements are being looked at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I look at the various practices that exist around measurement, whether it is measurement by objectives, KPIs, OKRs, or whatever, there are always objectives that express needs, something that we want to achieve with that what we're introducing or what we're trying. When I see Durgesh's question, how can we measure the value of the practices? For me, that question makes sense. But then I try to understand what is the reason for going that way? What is the reason for attempting such practices and for pursuing that value? Could be entirely different things. Like my organization back then was too chaotic. It was things were blowing up around us, so to speak. I've seen other organizations that are the opposite. They are too static. They are like dinosaurs. They're like dying. They need the same medicine, funnily enough. But the reason is entirely different. So the question then is, you introduce the same things, same values, same practices, but the need is different. Therefore, the measurements, the objectives lead to different measurements, stuff that you should be tracking. So I cannot answer that question without knowing, for any organization, why are you attempting this, becoming more agile or more management 3.0 practices or whatever. There is apparently some need somewhere that is hidden or not addressed or assumed.
Yeah, Jurgen. So to add on, I would say we started this practice here in my current organization, okay? And we came up with different workouts that we have and different practices, different suggestions to them. And I feel like our team, they feel very much comfortable. They feel very good. But at the same time, we are taking our team from the productivity hours. Okay, if we are trying to get them into some workouts or something, we are taking them out, right? And we are investing. I would say for management, it's investment, right? Time is investment for them. So what justification they look forward is, okay, we want to see some outcome out of this session, and if there is some outcome. And if it's not tangible, that doesn't make sense to them. They want to see a tangible output that, okay, you did this exercise. And most of the time it happens that people, they do attend sessions, but you don't find the changes unless you start embracing and you start implementing that rigorously. So that's what they feel like, okay, if we are doing something and if it's good for the organization, how we can embrace that and we can help people embracing it. And for that, we want to measure with some baseline that, okay, at initial state, we were at A, and now we can see some changes, and those changes are these parameters, and this is how we are measuring ourselves. I mean, that's what, and they want to see that investment ROI, I can say, the time ROI.
Yeah. Let's see, anyone that we haven't heard yet? What about Claire? You're listening silently there. What's your opinion on this question?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just what was coming into my mind as everyone was speaking was that the outcome is the important thing. And so whatever the management team is looking for, they're focused on that particular outcome. Does it even make sense to, sort of almost seems like, does it even make sense to even describe what we actually plan to do to meet that outcome? You know, are we making it harder for ourselves by giving a lot of detail around exactly what's going to happen to make that outcome be achieved? You know, because they're in some ways maybe they're not so interested in how we're going to get there and more interested in the outcome. That's just what was going through my head. Talking and rather than trying to kind of sell the benefits of particularly adopting these practices, but focusing in the discussion with management on the outcomes that they're looking for. Maybe it's obvious, but that's what was going through my head.
Yeah. I understand. And anyone else? Andy?
I just always feel this double bind, right? I can't remember the actual names of the effects. I get them confused all the time. I think it was Hawthorne. It was a fascinating study when electricity was introduced, and they turned on lights for the typing pool, and they said, "See, they're typing so much faster." And he did this classic experiment, and he was a scientist, and he said, "You know what? Let's turn the lights up brighter." Wow, they type even faster. And he was a scientist. He says, "Let's turn the lights off," and they typed even faster. And the effect became known as the Hawthorne effect, and it says, what you measure will improve, but at a cost. And so if we go to management and say, okay, what is valuable to you? Team velocity? Great, we'll measure that. And suddenly story points will inflate, and all kinds of things will happen. So we're in this double bind where we need support of management to introduce these ideas that improve the process, which helps obtain the goals. But what matters most to management is the measurement, which interferes with everything, right? We're so worried about quantifying the process that sometimes we forget about we're tweaking the process towards the goal, which comes back to what you said, Jurgen. What is the goal, right? Your manager wanted a good night's sleep. Your customers wanted decent experience. So how do we prove to somebody who's so quantitative that those goals are being obtained? So Durgas, if you had to say 2 or 3 goals that management really wanted, that would make them happy to see those goals obtained in a better way as a result of workouts and 3.0 sort of things. If you could figure those out, maybe it would help define some measurement or some demonstrable evidence that you're producing value by that. So can you give us some more background on, in your situation, what are the goals? What are the management's goals? Besides just hands on keyboards, all the time.
So what happens is, the management and the team. So what we do normally is we do start practicing at the team levels, right? Ground level. And reaching out to management, sometimes it happens like in a blue moon that, okay, we have some management for clients visiting, and we have to showcase that, okay, we initiated something, and we have to showcase something that what is the outcome of this initiative. So I cannot take on the people over there and say, hey, see, this is what he was behaving before, and this is how he is acting now. I mean, I cannot quantify that, right? I cannot take the people there and say that, okay, see the change. Instead, what their expectation was recently is they want to see that, okay, if you're saying we are implementing kind of, say, feedback graph or moving motivators, we have started implementing our kudos and all those, but how we are measuring them, how it's helping team. And that's what they asked me for, some matrices kind of thing, what we normally publish in Agile. So in Agile, we do have different matrices. We do publish that, okay, even for the agility, we do have, although they are not quantitative, but yes, we have some subjective thing wherein team, they rate themselves and they say that, okay, team composition out of 3, what do we think? It's 1, 2, 3, good, bad, or this, and they start tracking them. And slowly we start taking it as an action item that, okay, if our team composition is not good, how we can improve upon that? Do we really need to add in something or remove something? And that way we come to an agility matrix and we do, measure them. Similar kind of thing they want to see from the management 3 perspective, that, okay, if we start doing that practices, how we are measuring them up. And that's what my question is, the way we can come up with some descriptive, maybe we cannot be objective in terms of, human changes. But is there a way we can come up with some points wherein we can rate themselves, or the team can rate themselves, that, okay, we can see the changes, and which can be showcased to the management that, okay, yes, these are your people, they are saying about, see, they can see the changes, so you have to believe in them.
Yeah. I understand what you need, Durgesh. I think there are a number of valid suggestions, such as employee net promoter score, of how much the workers would recommend the organization to others, friends and family, etc., to work there. I know organizations are using that successfully. I know Gallup's 12 questions, which I have used in the past with good success, very measurable, that you can track over time. And as Lenny said, you need a benchmark. So you need to do this a couple of times and see whether you are improving. Such metrics exist, where you ask workers how they feel about the organization, do they have trust in the organization, and that is a very, very good indicator. Also, I think a convincing argument for many top managers, because ultimately it is expensive when people leave an organization. You can simply calculate the amount of dollars or euros or rupees that you need just to hire someone else and get them to the same level of performance of a person who has left. So I think those can be convincing metrics. But I also want to share, it's just a personal story that I was just thinking of while you guys were talking. I have been running, as some of you may have read on my blog, since a year or a little more in various cities around the world, which is awesome. In the beginning, I measure myself all the time, and the measurements themselves were motivating for me, like seeing the numbers go up. In the beginning, I could only do 5, then I could do 6, and ultimately I could do 15 or 16 without much effort, and that is motivating. And I noticed by now those measures have become less important for me. And actually, I had a bit of an injury during my vacation end of last year, so I had to take a break for 2 months. But my body said, I want to run, I want to go outside, and I want to do some running without the metric being important for me. And I thought, why is this happening? It's because I built up a need, apparently, in my system for being active. And I was planning to go running just after this call, and I will do that. And then I realized the metrics were like a bootstrapping mechanism. It is ultimately not about the metrics. It is teaching the body that this is a good thing to do. but the body is lazy. At least my body was pretty lazy, I can tell you that. And it needed these vanity metrics that themselves maybe are not that important, but they motivated me. Like metrics motivate your managers and say, okay, well, you keep doing that moving motivator stuff and kudo cards because the metrics look good and things are going up, and all right, you have a green light. But ultimately, maybe you don't need the measurements anymore because the organization gets used, the culture changes, and then you don't need the metrics after a year or two or so. That would be awesome if you could achieve that. But that just make me think, this little personal story, that it could be just a bootstrapping mechanism. Even Eric Ries in his Lean Startup book says of some metrics that they are vanity metrics. They only make you feel better, but they don't really help you improve. Well, in that sense, maybe even vanity metrics can have a good effect because they motivate you to continue because the numbers are going up until you throw them away, and then you don't need the measurements anymore.
Yeah, I agree, Jurgen, on that point. At some point of time, the matrices, they should not be bleeding up people, okay? And we did started with, I would give my personal experience during my transformation is, we started with almost 13 different tracking matrices for teams. And they were being used at different levels. At the team level, management level, managers level, because we cannot simply think of that things can get changed in a day or two, right? We have to maintain the relations with everyone, and I felt like, yes, your point is valid. That down the line, we should not be just practicing the matrices. If what my point is, we can get started with some matrices, and down the line, as you said, the body gets used to it, and you don't feel like I should be maintaining any matrices because you are into that direction, and you start following that. Your body wants that. Similar way, at the initial state, the management, they feel like, yes, there is a need of matrices, but down the line, if they feel like, okay, we can see the changes, and we can really observe that, we can eliminate them. We can come up with some different ways of tracking or different ways of looking things. And that's what I feel like, yes, that's a good suggestion I can take on, though.
My mic seems to be stuck. Oh, yeah, it's working. Yeah, I think then we come back to what Andy said earlier with the different perspectives. I think we need a buy-in, a commitment from management, because things cost time. We need to spend some money on stuff, etc. They need to think positively about what we're doing, and then if metrics help, then let's give them the metrics and show that they're going up. Hopefully they are good metrics, but as I said in the beginning, maybe we even have to fake it. Maybe they're just vanity metrics that make them feel happy, and it is all for a good cause. And ultimately, we're teaching the body we're teaching the organization to change so that it may not need those metrics anymore. That is different from the perspective of the change itself. Like if I was trying to run a marathon, if that was my goal as a person, then I would really need to measure some serious stuff in order to be able to know that I would pull it off. And right now I can't, I can tell you that. So then for yourself or as a team, you would want to measure really other things that are not vanity metrics as Eric Ries said, but that truly help you to improve your performance. But sometimes things are simply not measurable. Things are more like a feeling, like you feel better than you felt last year. How do you measure that, feeling better? I have no idea. It's just how I feel. And I think a team can have the same thing, that a team says, yeah, we feel better as a team. We have no idea how to express it, but things are just going much better than they were last year. And that could be enough. This this kind of feeling. Anyone else have some good insights? Vanessa?
I was thinking about my nephew, and we have a 12-foot ruler on the wall of one of the doors, and we mark his height, and as he grows, he gets to see his little position. And I was thinking, could we do something combining some of the practices of sort of a work expo where you put up a picture of Marty, and then you put some measurements of how high is Marty growing, how tall is he getting, and you put, and when something is achieved or done related to energizing people, you put a post-it note or aligning constraints. And so those post-it notes are Marty getting taller and bigger, something, you know, more playful perhaps.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. Put them against the wall and get your crayon markers out. And
yeah. Legos.
Yeah. That's nice. All right, Joris, we haven't heard you yet. You're keeping silent there in what do you mean? Are you now in Brazil or in the USA?
I'm in USA now.
You're in the USA now. Okay. Yeah. So what's your idea, Joris?
I'm just listening and learning.
Learning. That is allowed.
But what I see is that it's better visualize what it's happened than measure.
Okay. Smart words from Joris. Yes, visualizing is better than using numbers for people sometimes. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Ankur, we haven't heard you either.
About to raise my hand. Okay, I have whatever we said, that is absolutely right. And my intake on is that, for example, as a person, we do a lot of things to build our character. We do a lot of things to groom ourselves in a personal life, right? And when we raise ourselves to a level where people come to us and ask, okay, guys, what are you doing? You know, you look today awesome. You always keep yourself happy. What you do, right? So neither I am measuring that particular thing, neither the people are measuring that particular thing. But when we get in front of them and see the result, that now I'm keeping myself every time happy, I'm smiling, I'm doing a lot of things, but behind the scene I might be doing a number of things. So similarly, if we are doing these activity behind the scene, and when the manager will see the result, they themselves come to you and say that, you know, okay, guys, what you're doing in your team always remain happy. Your teams do a lot of things differently. How you're doing that? So I think we can do it in a different way. Let's do it, show the result of the team, and then let the management ask the question what you're doing, and we will say Happy Melly.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for your input. Let's see. Anyone else wants to have some last suggestions? Sarah, I haven't heard you for a little while.
When we talk about metrics, the thing that makes me nervous is if you have the type of culture where those can be used not in a positive way. You know, like if you're internally within the team measuring, I don't know, commitment levels and it's low, and then someone gets wind of that and wants to fix it for the team instead of having the team own it. You know, like how do you, I don't want to use the word protect, but how do you ensure that you're building the type of culture where you can be honest and not have interference? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no answer right now, but I understand what you're saying.
When you figured that out, let us know.
Yes, please let us know.
That to me is one of the scary things about measuring, is then it makes it, you know, like you said, it can be used to manipulate kind of, because people will meet the numbers. So other things are sacrificed.
Well, numbers are just numbers. They are valueless in themselves. They're just a tool. And like any tool, they can be used for good and for bad. Right. So indeed, that is why I need culture and values to make sure that the tools are used for good things. I get the same question quite often about peer-to-peer crediting, for example, merit money, where people give each other points, and then the question is always, but what if two people give each other all their points under the desk? Mm-hmm. And my answer is, well, what does this say about the culture and the values of your organization that you expect your coworkers to behave like that? And apparently you have another problem to solve first. So it is the same with any kind of tool. Yeah, they can be good, used for good and for bad. Even kudo cards. As I tweeted a while ago, I got the question from someone that an organization wants to give bonuses for people who receive the most kudo cards, and asked whether that was a good thing or not. Well, any organization can destroy any kind of good practice, I'm sure.
But you have to look at it more as that teaches you something, right? If you see that those numbers are being used that way, then that is still more data that you
Exactly. And just having the data, the transparency itself can help people to start that process of dealing with the pain and addressing the bad behaviors, etc. Because the culture is already there. If people already have that kind of attitude, such transparency, such tools simply make it visible. As I repeated last night on a speech, a famous quote about Scrum is that is like your mother-in-law only pointing at your problems but not fixing any. It is the same with many other kinds of practices that just introduce transparency. And then you reveal the pain. But then the people themselves have to address it. Yeah, the same with measurement, I suppose. It's a good thing to have the data and then you deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important to create a culture that's safe enough where people feel like they can share honestly and say if they see a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the key things for management and leaders to address that culture, to deal with the way we deal with the data. And that there's no finger pointing and things like that. If things are bad, then they have to be addressed, talked about without looking for who did it, but just concluding this is unacceptable, let's resolve this together. So good point. Nicoletta, what are your last wise words in this call?
I've been in this situation like Durgesh, so management requesting measurements like team satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and all these, and so I can resonate with this problem because in a more traditional setting with more traditional old-fashioned managers, there's a reason why they want these measurements. Then you give them the measurements. It's I think a lot depends on what questions you ask, but you can ask questions, the team or people can score it, you can draw all the fancy spider diagrams and calculate the averages, the means, and all that jazz. And they were happy with this, so I can provide Durgesh with my own version if you wanted, but I think it all depends on the questions. So the questions are important because, as you said, it's very easy to fall through the rabbit hole and create a lot of vanity metrics, and then give bonuses and other stuff based on it, or just shut the whole thing down because so it's 4 and 4 and 4, so it's no use.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do understand that. I can correlate. So yes, I have the similar situation, but we understand our practices, right? And we know what we are trying to achieve. But it really becomes difficult in a traditional, during a transformation. When we talk about transformations, we come across different phases. No doubt, the people sitting at the top management, although we call them leaders, I'm not abusing them, but they still have that mindset. They still have that, and they realize that that takes a long time. Actually, the realization time is very, very long. We cannot simply go, hey, I'm an agile coach, I'm a management practitioner, I can make this change, and they'll accept it. No, they're not going to accept it. Because they have been into that situation wherein they just count the numbers. They know the numbers. They want to see the numbers. And for an employer who they really want to be one of the best employer choice of employer, so for that, when I say that, okay, from the cultural aspects, let's introduce these things and we can get into some good practices. This is okay. You're talking about management 3 practices. I agree to it. I can see there are best practices in it. How you're gonna showcase us? How you're gonna measure them up? How I can report to my top, above me, how I can say that, okay, these are the changes, these are the investments I did for this, and this is what the outcome is coming out. He cannot simply go and say, okay, go and have a floor walk and see if people are happy, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that really becomes tough for me, actually. I'm giving my example to justify those things. Even I understand, I know most of the practices, and I try convincing them, taking their buy-in, but at the end, when the money comes into, the dollars, they need a quantifiable data.
Yeah. Well, we all feel for you, Durgesh. We all have similar problems. We totally understand. And maybe that is a comforting thought that you're not the only one struggling with this problem. But we had some good insights from the people here in the call. There are different perspectives. What the managers need is different from what the team needs. Even vanity metrics could be useful. Not in terms of improvement for yourself, but in terms of getting buy-in from outside the stakeholders, and that itself allows you to do your job. And the more things you measure, the better it is, because there's always some numbers going up, as I always say. So better chance of finding a vanity metric somewhere that will make some person happy.
I'll get that from Nicoletta.
Right. Nicoletta can help you with that one.
and I like the idea, actually, from Anisha, and and I think most probably, yes, I'll take that help as well and see how I can get into it.
Right. Okay. Well, it's good that we are able to help each other a little bit during our coffee. So, well, that's it. I'm calling it a day. I'm going for a run. I don't know about you, but I promised myself to go running, and I'm going to do that. And we will. I'm sure Andy will be having another coffee in about 2 weeks, probably. Yeah. All right. Andy is together with Patrick, the community organizers who get us around the coffee place. So thank you very much, Andy, for organizing this. And look at that, Vanessa finished her coffee. I had just a glass of water, but don't tell anyone. Cool. I will see everyone well, maybe some of you and other people in about 2 weeks. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Durgesh, for your amazing question, and have a great weekend.